Your 42nd? Decide everything. My father retired at 67 and immediately picked up a part-time job at a hardware store. Not because he enjoys the work, because his pension doesn't cover the bills. His brother, the one who grew up in the same bedroom, went to the same schools, had the exact same start in life, is currently wintering in Spain, paying for his grandchildren's college. Never checking prices on a menu. The difference between them isn't luck, isn't genes, isn't some inheritance one got and the other didn't. The difference is 1 decade, and a handful of decisions inside it that felt small at the time. The math nobody explains until it's too late. There's a moment in your financial life when 3 powerful forces align simultaneously. It only happens once, and most people don't even notice it's arrived until it's already gone. That moment is your 40S. Here's why this decade carries weight that no other decade can match. Peak earning power. For most professionals, income hits its ceiling somewhere between 42 and 55. This is the period when you have more raw material available for building wealth than at any previous point in your life, and more than you'll likely ever have again. Remaining compounding time. At 40, you still have 20 to 25 years before traditional retirement. A dollar invested today roughly quadruples by 65 at historical market returns. At 50, that same dollar only doubles. At 55, even less. Every year you delay isn't just a year lost, it's a multiplier lost. That's a fundamentally different kind of loss. Expenses finally stabilize. The kids are becoming more independent. The mortgage fits the budget now. The career wardrobe is established. For the first time in 2 decades of adult life, genuine financial margin appears. The only question is where it goes towards savings or toward an upgraded version of the life you already have. These 3 forces converge exactly once. The person who captures that alignment builds serious wealth. The person who misses it faces a mathematical gap that simply cannot be closed by working harder later. The numbers you need to see. Take someone who turns 40 with $100,000 in retirement savings and an income of $110,000 per year. If they save 15% consistently from 40 to 65, invested in diversified index funds returning 8% annually, they retire with approximately $1.35 million. Combined with Social Security, that's a genuinely comfortable retirement with room to spare. Same person, same starting point. But they save only 5% through their 40S because there's always a reason to wait, then panic at 50 and crank contributions up to 15% for the final stretch. They retire with roughly $780,000. That's $570,000 less, despite the same income, the same market, the same everything, just different 40S. Now, the third scenario. This person barely saves during their 40S. They upgrade the house. They buy better cars. They take the vacations their peer group takes. Average contributions, 2% of income. At 50, reality hits hard. They save aggressively 20% straight through to retirement. They end up with approximately $590,000. The gap between the first and third scenario is $760,000. A decade of aggressive catch-up couldn't close what a decade of comfortable spending opened. That number deserves a moment of silence. The 5 decisions that actually matter. 1. The house. This is probably the single most expensive decision you'll ever make, and almost nobody understands its true cost when they make it. Upgrading from a $350,000 home to a $600,000 home increases monthly housing costs by roughly $1,500 to $2,000. That's $18,000 to $24,000 per year that can no longer be invested. Across 25 years of compounding, that upgrade costs somewhere between $900,000 and $1.3 million in retirement wealth. People think they're paying more for extra bedrooms. They're actually paying $1 million for the feeling of having arrived. The family that stays in the modest home and invests the difference doesn't just retire richer, they retire with options the upgrading family never has. Earlier retirement, Part-time work by choice, not necessity. Helping their own kids buy homes, weathering emergencies without catastrophe. 2. The cars. In your 40s, it starts to feel like you've finally earned a real car. The argument makes emotional sense. The financial math does not. 2 vehicles at $45,000 each, instead of 2 at $28,000 means $34,000 more in auto debt, higher insurance, more expensive repairs repeated across multiple replacement cycles. The total cost to retirement savings, somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000, depending on how often you upgrade. A car is transportation. It is not a reward for 20 years of hard work. The market doesn't care how much you deserve it. 3. The kids' education. Parents who take on $100,000 plus in loans to send a child to a prestigious university are doing their child a kindness. They are doing their retirement a serious injury. The child graduates into 40 years of peak earning potential. The parent enters their 50s with depleted savings and barely a decade to recover. The math is not subtle about who needs the financial protection more. The families who navigate this well make uncomfortable choices. State universities, merit scholarships, honest conversations with their kids about what the family can and cannot afford. And they never, even under pressure, even during the college years, stop feeding their own retirement account. 4. Career risk. Here's the cruel irony of your 40s. It's precisely the decade when you should be taking strategic career risks, and precisely the decade when most people become most risk-averse. They've built seniority. They've earned comfort. Starting over somewhere new feels threatening, but your 40Cs are the last window for genuine income acceleration. At 43, you have time to recover if a bold move doesn't work out. At 53, you largely don't. The income difference between staying comfortable and pursuing growth can exceed $30,000 to $40,000 per year. Over 10 years, that's $300,000 to $400,000 in additional earnings before you even factor in compounding. 5. Lifestyle inflation. This is the quietest killer of financial freedom because it never feels like a decision. It feels like life. Colleagues take elaborate vacations. Neighbors renovate their kitchens. Friends acquire the trappings of success. The social pressure to match your peer group in your 40s is real, sustained, and insidious. Some families resist it. Others absorb every dollar of increased income into visible consumption without ever consciously choosing to do so. The retirement gap between these two approaches typically exceeds $1 million. Not from a single dramatic choice, from 100 small ones made over a decade that each felt completely reasonable at the time. 2 families, same starting line, different endings. David and Christine turned 40 with $185,000 in retirement savings and a combined income of $165,000. A normal, solid family. David wanted a better house. Christine hesitated, then agreed. Monthly housing costs jumped by $1,650. Retirement contributions dropped from 15% to 6%. Just temporarily, they told themselves. Then a new car for David, then one for Christine, then private sports coaching for the kids, SAT tutors, college visits. When their daughter enrolled at an out-of-state university, they took a Parent Plus loan rather than asking her to choose something more affordable. Every single decision made sense. Every single one felt earned. At 50, their retirement accounts held $240,000. In 10 years of solid income and a rising market, they had added $55,000. The market grew. They didn't. By 65, saving aggressively, they retired with $685,000. That sounds like real money until you run the projections. It runs out around 82. After that, sell the house, cut expenses dramatically, or work into their 70s. Robert and Jennifer looked almost identical to David and Christine at 40, income of $155,000. Retirement savings of $165,000. 2 kids, 11 and 8. Robert suggested upgrading their home. Jennifer pushed back hard. She'd done the math on what that decision actually costs over 25 years of compounding. They stayed. That $1,650 monthly difference went straight to their investment accounts. When Robert's car needed replacing, they bought a 3-year-old certified pre-owned vehicle. When college approached, they had honest, direct conversations with their kids about costs. Both children attended state universities with merit scholarships. Throughout their entire 40s, Robert and Jennifer felt socially behind their peer group. Their life looked modest compared to the people around them. At 50, their retirement accounts held $580,000, tripled in a decade. At 65, $1.65 million. House paid off, travel without limits, zero financial anxiety, permanently. The difference between these two families was not income, not investment skill, not luck. It was their 40S. Why this is so hard and why it's worth it anyway. The deepest trap of the 40S is the feeling that you've earned the upgrade. 2 decades of work, 2 decades of restraint. Now, finally, you get to live. But research on hedonic adaptation is unambiguous. The satisfaction from lifestyle upgrades lasts 18 to 24 months. Then the new becomes normal. The restriction becomes permanent. The upgraded house stops feeling special roughly 2 years after move-in, and the financial constraint it creates. What to do right now based on where you are. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you have something none of these people had foreknowledge. You now know that your 40S will bring constant, socially reinforced pressure to expand your lifestyle precisely when you have the most money to do it with. Build the habits now. Automate your retirement contributions. Decide what enough looks like before your income makes excess possible. If you're entering your 40S, you're standing at the most consequential financial inflection point of your life. Audit every major expense category right now while there's still time to change course. Is your housing proportionate to your actual needs or to your desire to signal success? Are your cars transportation or status? Are you funding retirement before funding lifestyle? Every yes to lifestyle expansion is a no to future freedom. If you're in your late 40s and recognizing yourself in the wrong story, you still have time to change trajectory. Every percentage point added to your savings rate now materially improves your outcome. Consider the options your lifestyle-inflated peers won't. Downsizing housing now rather than at retirement, selling expensive vehicles, pursuing higher-paying opportunities even if they require uncomfortable change. If you're past your 40 seconds with inadequate savings, focus on what remains within your control. Delay Social Security to maximize monthly benefits. Consider working longer in a field you can sustain. Downsize housing to release equity. Small adjustments still compound. The morning at 70. Picture yourself at 70. A quiet morning, coffee, something you love visible through the window. In one version, you're thinking about which grandchild to visit this month, planning a trip to somewhere you always meant to go. If an unexpected expense arrived, it would be an inconvenience, not a crisis. In the other version, you're doing mental arithmetic about whether this month's pension covers both the medication and the property taxes, wondering how long the car will hold together, calculating whether asking your kids for help would be worse than the alternative. Both versions of you made their key decisions decades earlier. Both lived normal, busy lives. Both thought they were doing fine. The difference isn't fate. It isn't income. It isn't anything that happened to them from the outside. It's what they chose to do between 40 and 50.